4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Racing World, brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your motorsport podcast show in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, once again, welcome back to Racing World as we count down to the 105th running of the great race, the Indy 500, due just kick off in just a couple of days from now. So today, US time Thursday, New Zealand time Friday, was the final media conference for all of the drivers. And luckily enough, we were able to speak to quite a lot of them, actually. This is probably the last time that they'll be available to the media, just assuming on how things go with Carb Day. Speaking of Carb Day, at the moment, there's big concerns about getting Carb Day in. There's a weather front heading towards Indianapolis, massive temperature drop, big wind gain, and rain. Yes, that's right. The thing they were talking about that they hadn't had, rain. It's due to hit Indianapolis tonight, so Thursday night leading into Friday. IndyCar are already looking at scenarios as to how they can hold the 2-hour session sometime on Friday because there's no other track activity due to the COVID restrictions, so there's not the normal pit stop competition and Freedom 100 race and all of those sorts of things. So the track is available all day. Jay Fry, the director of IndyCar, said this morning that they would look to endeavour to get at least 1 hour of the 2 hours in. So all the teams are very keen to do that because the other twist that's come with this weather front is we've gone from temperatures that were in the 80-odd degree Fahrenheit mark down to something that's as low as the early 60s. So massive aerodynamic changes facing the teams. But to kick off the media conference, I got someone that most of New Zealand's really keen to hear from these days. It's Kiwi, Scott McLaughlin.
Morning, Scott. First of all, as you well know, congratulations on being inducted into the New Zealand Motorsport Hall of Fame the other night. It's great to see you and well done. So congratulations.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Just a question for you, or I've got a couple, but one of the ones that I thought of was a few years ago, we were both out at Anderson Speedway when you and Fabian were up as a guest of Rogers for the 500, and you were sitting behind me that night at Anderson, and there was you, me, Murph, a whole bunch of people.
Oh, and Kelly.
Yeah. At that time, did you think that you'd be sitting here at a press conference today about to start your first 500?
No, absolutely not. I think, I think I always had the ambition and the want to come over to America and race. But did I think, would Roger have considered me for, an IndyCar? Perhaps not. I just thought, the touring car route was probably where it was going to be if I was going to be able to achieve anything over here, just because it's what I've known for my whole time. But I just said in an interview before, I'm so thankful for the opportunity and what's happened because I've really enjoyed my time here in IndyCar so far. It's so fresh and new for me. Learning a car that's completely different to what I've ever driven before in the past. The last open wheeler I drove was in 2010 in a Formula Ford. There was no wings and slicks on that thing either. So, I'm really enjoying the freshness and the challenge and the camaraderie within the paddock. And my first Indy 500 or Indy month has been everything that I could have thought of. It's been up and down, learning the traffic, learning qualifying speed, feeling the boost for the very first time. That was incredible. So, really, really, really excited for what's ahead and really don't know what to think for what it's going to be like on race day morning for me.
People down here the other day were trying to compare it to Bathurst, which of course it's nowhere near like Bathurst, as we both well know. But the big thing about it is if you like, an endurance event. It's the longest race in the calendar pretty much, and you've got more pit stops than you'll do in any other race. So they're all going to be quite fresh things for you at the end of the day, aren't they?
Yeah, look, absolutely. But look, in the same way, I think Bathurst is, a race that is very similar in tradition. It's a very, as tradition race. But I think the biggest thing here is that Indianapolis is IndyCar. The town is IndyCar. This is where IndyCar was born, basically. So, for me, learning, how much the town gets around this race and this category has been really special. And I think but there's one thing that is very similar with Bathurst in this race from a racing perspective is the way that you've got to set yourself up for that last stint, that last run to the flag. You've got to buy your ticket to the last stint, and we're going to be working very hard on the weekend to do that.
Well, the alarm clock's all set for Monday morning back down here, so we'll be watching you. And again, congratulations on the Hall of Fame thing, and look forward to seeing you again on Monday my time, Sunday your time.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
Scott McLaughlin certainly has a great future in front of him. There is just so much potential with this guy. Unbelievable to think that just a few months ago he was driving a touring car in Australia, and here he is in the world's largest race in a single-seater. Just uncapped potential, way more to come. The captain's found a winner in that one, that's for sure. Now, moving on to the Ganassi boys, got to speak to a few of them as well. Alex Plough and Marcus Ericsson, both at Ganassi, both inside the top 9. For Alex, he was at Dale Coyne Racing last year, starts now with Ganassi's. But one of the big differences for Alex last year is there was no crowd because we were right in the middle of COVID. Marcus, of course, has seen a crowd before because he raced in 2019. But, you know, for both of them, it's just I just wanted to ask them what their feeling was about the whole crowd situation and what it does to a driver's morale.
The only bad thing is that I never got to see this place full of people. And last year it was already impressive that we are spending 2 weeks on track. Like, it's crazy the amount of effort, and also when you see the teams preparing your car for the 500 already in December, it's like, wow, like the amount of effort and work that the teams and every single person puts for this race, it's amazing. And then when you see, it's true that this past week it's been super fun, having some fans in the paddock and being able to take some photos and get the energy from them. It's been super good for the drivers. And then on Sunday we're gonna have over 100,000 people, which I never saw. 100,000, more than 100,000 people in the same place, I think. So it's gonna be impressive. But hopefully next year we are able to have the full capacity. But yeah, cannot wait for Sunday.
So I think for me, it's, I raced 5 years in F1. I did Monaco, I did Monza and Silverstone and all these classic races, and signing up for IndyCar, everyone talked to me about the Indy 500, obviously. And to be completely honest, I thought that it was a bit like overrated, or, people was making it sound more than it was. So, that was sort of my mindset when I went into 2019, my rookie year. But I got to tell you that I completely got blown away in 2019 when I got here to the month of May. It's just something else. It's just such a unique event. I think the history, the tradition, the amount of time you spend on track, the amount of preparation the teams put into it, the speeds you race at on this place, the facilities, the track. It's just all these things together just makes it a unique event. And then on top of that, to have 300,000 fans in the stands just blows your mind away. So that race day in 2019 was the most awesome experience I've had on the racetrack, and can't wait to see fans back this year. Obviously not full capacity, but still, like Alex says, over 100,000 people gonna be here on race day, which is gonna be so great to see. And yeah, I just love this event, love being part of it, and hopefully, I will be able to do it for many years to come as well. I think it's just amazing.
Well, another one that you really can't count out of this equation. He got so close years ago, as we all know, hit the wall at turn 4. Dan Weldon screams on past and takes that race. But JR Hildebrand back as part of what was the 4-car, now 3-car AJ Foyt team, with Charlie Kimball not making the cut the other day. But, JR's one of those people that if you had an extra couple of bucks and you were putting a wager on, you wouldn't count him out. He's experienced the low, if you like, and I'm sure that there's a high there. Chevy power with Foyt. Chevy not seen as the car necessarily in qualifying, but from what I've learned today, qualifying doesn't mean that much in terms of the horsepower between the two engines. Honda performed way better with the boost turned up than what Chevy did. So we've got level playing field again, and we'll just, see how that goes. But JR is one of those people that you kind of hope he goes well. But the Foyt team really took a bit of a hit after Texas, where they had such a big rebuild to do with the crashes that they had with Sebastian Bourdais both days and Dalton Kennett. So really big move to get JR Hildebrand back in the car.
I think this is the best race car I've had here in a long time. And part of that is I think everybody's stuff got a little better this year, or feels a little better on track, just with the aero tweaks to the car. And you can get a little more downforce kind of for free. So It's natural that probably everybody feels a little racier, but just in terms of, as a driver, this is my 11th 500. You really remember I've been fortunate, I guess, to have some cars that were really fast around here and really good in the race, that you felt like you could pick your way through a pack of cars. Like, just get me in the top 10 with a couple of stints to go and I can move to the front. And, so I kind of know what that feels like. And if, you commit those feelings to memory when they happen. And, this is the first time in a few years that I've had some of that back in the car, that it's really given me, it's responding to what I'm looking for. And, it didn't start out that way. So it's not just natural that it's going to be that way. We found it in the setup. So really, that I think as a driver, qualifying can be, there's always one manufacturer that's a little better than the other. There's, time of day, there's always stuff that can happen that makes it so that you're not maybe starting where you think you should or where you could have. All you want as a race car driver is to feel like you can pass some cars on race day. And we've definitely homed in on a setup that we think we can do that. So feeling good for sure.
Great words from JR. Now, another sly one inside the top 9. And again, this one is a Honda power. Andretti Autosport, another big tick. Ryan Hunter-Reay, previous winner of the race as well, previous IndyCar champion. But the question that I posed to Ryan is this Ganassi's race to win, or is this Ganassi's race to lose?
Yeah, certainly Ganassi's been very strong. We all see that. They've been fast. I don't think anybody really knows, though, what the whole program looks like when it comes to all the cars out there, because in practice, you have a lot of cooperation from a lot of drivers. Everybody's, 80% on that scale. So when you get into the race, there's the cooperation's out the window and everybody's kind of fighting tooth and nail for every inch of racetrack. It's anybody's guess. It's going to be obviously the Ganassi cars are fast, though.
Well, one that you'd never rule out, certainly Ryan Hunter-Reay, so we'll see how that one develops. Andretti Autosport inside the top 9. Next up on the people that I spoke to this morning, Colton Herter, starting in the middle of the front row. And the question I have, Colton, is are you going to let Scott dictate this race right at the beginning, or are you going to have a run out front yourself and see what happens?
I think I'm fine with Dixon leading. I think we've seen in the past, I don't know that he will lead. I think we've seen in the past how much of a fuel race this is. Every year it seems like it is, and especially when you're up in the front, you're burning a lot of fuel to stay up there. So we'll see. I think he's a smart guy. He knows that too. He's done this race plenty of times. So if he does lead, I think it would kind of surprise me a little bit. But we'll see. I think I'm really content with staying in the top 5 for most of the beginning of the race.
And then very sadly this week, the passing of Andre Ribeiro, who was well known within IndyCar circles and Champ Car back in its day as well. Another very, very talented driver, and sadly we lost him in the early part of this week. He was also a very great friend of Elio Castroneves.
We're going to be wearing this on Sunday, which is helmet. So Tim Penske was able to produce that. And it was a very sad news finding out. He was definitely a person that kind of like helped me in the beginning of my career in terms of when I went to Taz Motorsport and Indy Lights. And it was very shocking news. So I want to keep the memories that I have with him, the laughs that I have with him. Those memories I want to keep it. And I'm sure he's in a much better place. I will pray for his family, but certainly it was a very surprised and shocking loss that motorsport and us, the race community, face with it.
Now, with the rumour of bad weather coming, and the one thing that I can tell you all is that when the Indianapolis Weather Department predict weather, 99% of the time they get it right. The area is so flat around there that they can predict when the weather's going to hit, and they pretty much nail it. So one of the things that will be concerning, which I mentioned early on, is the change in the temperature. So I thought what better to ask Stefan Wilson what he thought that would do.
Yeah, so I think right now we're just trying to see what the weather's going to do during the race time. It looks like it's going to be a lot cooler, and I think that's the kind of washing away grip on the track is not so much a concern for me, at least. It's more about the weather, the actual temperature, the ambient temperature, because that's going to change a lot about the air density, and then therefore the drag numbers and the downforce numbers. It's going to produce a lot more downforce. So it's going to be legit 20 degrees cooler than it was on Sunday night. Last Sunday night it was 85 degrees, and I think the race start time is 65 degrees. So 20 degrees cooler. It's amazing how much more downforce that's going to produce for the cars, which is good for racing. It's good for me starting back in 28. But at the same time, we're still going to have to try and do some calculations and make sure that we hit our downforce and drag numbers correctly, because we definitely don't want to be too draggy and this much more dense air.
Certainly going to make that race interesting. Colder temperatures, you could just misjudge this car setup massively now. After weeks of progressing through in the hotter days up in the 80s, so 30 degrees Celsius plus, to suddenly be down in the 15 type Celsius mark or 60 degree Fahrenheit. So it'll make it interesting. Another man that made qualifying and bump day interesting, Australian Will Power, and of course on that qualifying lap managed to graze the wall. Will, what was that like? What did you think when you headed towards turn 3 after touching the wall in turn 2?
I was very worried about 3 and 4. Very worried about 3. That was my main concern. As hard as I hit it, I really had no choice but to keep it wide open into 3. But I wasn't sure it was going to stick. I have to say, I was not sure what was going to happen, but fortunately it did. I have to say, not even half an inch more into that turn 3 wall, I don't think I was finishing the run.
Simona, just a question for you that's probably been asked to you before, but I just wondered, since it's been a while since you've been at the Speedway and the changes in the cars, how are you finding the car now with the aero screen and the extra weight that brings, and by comparison to the last time you were there?
Yeah, to be honest, because it's been 6 years since I drove, to me, I kind of approached the month of May not as a rookie, but a bit kind of pretty open-minded on how the car feels and things like that. And the aero screen, the biggest thing that it really changed, I think, is more in traffic, just how close you can run to people. Back in the day when you didn't have it, you would feel much more air movement on your helmet and some buffeting and stuff like that you don't feel right now. And that makes it quite a little bit tricky just to know your distance. To know where it's going to wash out and things like that. But, everyone is a bit in the same boat from that point of view. So that's, I think, the biggest difference, that I'm really feeling for sure.
All the very best for the race. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Supercars kind of misses you down this way, but equally you've got McLaughlin there to keep you company. And I'm sure between you guys at Team Penske, you'll be in the show on Sunday.
Thank you.
Well, everyone, there we have it. That's just a few of the drivers that line up in the field of 33 for the 105th running of the Great Race. If there is a carb day tomorrow, then please check out the Race Control Facebook page, and I will update all the timing information from carb day should it happen. I think at the moment it's 50-50 odds actually, or it'll happen much later in the day. But regardless, I'll keep you posted on the Facebook page, and then we'll see you again on Monday New Zealand time, Sunday in the US, for a complete wrap-up of the 105th Indy 500 here on Racing World.